Imagine a man born into the dust and sweat of a diamond mine, his father a miner who toiled deep underground, only to lose his life in the same soil that foreign corporations would later covet. That man, Ibrahim Traoré, now stands at the head of a long polished table in the Grand Hall of the Presidential Palace in Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. The room is filled with the world's most powerful mining executives, men who control billions of dollars in global wealth, men who have shaped the fates of nations. There is Charles Leblanc, CEO of the French giant Atlantis Mining, his face flushed with the anticipation of sealing a deal. Next to him, Robert Wilson from Liberty Resources, an American energy conglomerate, watches intently. At the far end, Liu Wei, senior negotiator from China's Dragon Minerals, adjusts his tie. They have come to claim the Blue Diamond Mine, a treasure trove of diamonds and, unbeknownst to the world until now, lithium. The critical mineral that powers the global energy transition. LeBlanc leans forward, voice steady yet firm. Mr. President, Atlantis Mining offers $1.2 billion in cash and a 20-year technology transfer deal. This is a generous offer, President Traoré. Your country doesn't yet have the technology to operate such a mine on its own. His words hang in the air, a subtle reminder of the global power imbalance, but Traoré remains unshaken. With a faint smile, he replies, "You're mistaken, Mr. LeBlanc. For the past 2 years, Burkina Faso has trained over 200 mining and geology engineers at the Burkina Faso Technical University. We've also secured the technology and equipment to process lithium on our own soil. You underestimated us." In that moment, the balance of power shifts. This is not the story of a small African nation being bought out by foreign interests. This is the story of a leader who has done his homework, outsmarted the world's most powerful, and is ready to rewrite the rules of global trade. What happens next is a battle for the soul of a nation, and perhaps, the entire continent. Ibrahim Traoré's story is not one of privilege, but of struggle, etched in the red dust of the mines where his father, Amara Traoré, once labored under the harsh sun and the weight of foreign exploitation. Born into poverty in a small village near the Blue Diamond Mine, Ibrahim's childhood was marked by loss. When he was just 8 years old, his father died in a mine collapse, a tragedy that was officially labeled an accident but whispered among locals as something more sinister. Amara had reportedly discovered an unusual mineral vein beneath the diamonds, lithium, a resource so valuable that its existence was a tightly held secret by the foreign operators of the mine. That secret cost him his life. Left behind were a grieving mother, a small piece of blue diamond handed to Ibrahim as a keepsake, and a family forced to scrape by in the margins of a system rigged against them. The mine continued operations under Atlantis Mining, the French conglomerate, extracting wealth from Burkinabe soil while local communities remained impoverished and neglected. As Ibrahim grew, so did his resolve. He excelled in school, driven by the memory of his father and the injustice his family endured. After completing his studies in physics and engineering, he joined the Burkinabe military, a path that provided both opportunity and access to the inner workings of the nation's economic machinery. Rising through the ranks, Traoré built a network of loyal officers and technocrats who shared his vision of national sovereignty. His leadership was shaped by meticulous preparation. For years, Traoré worked quietly to lay the foundations for change. He commissioned geological studies, trained over 200 mining and geology engineers at Burkina Faso Technical University, and secured secret technology transfer agreements with countries like Russia, Iran, and Turkey. By the time he ascended to the presidency, Traoré wasn't just a military man, he was an engineer, a strategist, and a symbol of a nation's rising determination. Traoré's vision extended beyond technical capacity. He understood the global context. Lithium, dubbed the white gold of the 21st century, was the cornerstone of the green energy revolution, critical for batteries, electric vehicles, and energy storage systems. Control over such a resource meant leverage, not just for Burkina Faso, but for Africa as a whole. When Traoré finally stepped into the Grand Hall to face the world's most powerful CEOs, he was not unprepared. He had in his possession a secret dossier. Geological surveys, internal memos from Atlantis Mining dating back to 1994, and testimony from Joseph Conate, a former Atlantis employee, confirming the existence of the lithium deposits. The evidence was damning. Foreign corporations had known about the lithium for decades and had deliberately concealed its true value while offering a fraction of its worth in cash deals. For Traore, this wasn't just about a mine. It was about justice for his father, for the thousands of Burkinabe miners who had suffered and died, and for a country that had been systematically robbed of its wealth. His mission was clear: reclaim what was rightfully Burkina Faso's and rewrite the narrative of African nations being exploited by foreign powers. Traore's journey from a miner's orphan to the leader of a nation ready to challenge the global economic order was not just a personal triumph, it was the spark of a revolution. The Grand Hall of the Presidential Palace in Ouagadougou was a scene of calculated formality that day, a high-stakes chessboard where global power players had gathered to secure what they believed was a routine acquisition. Seated at the polished mahogany table were the titans of the mining world: Charles Leblanc, CEO of Atlantis Mining, representing French interests. His offer, $1.2 billion in cash and a 20-year technology transfer deal. Robert Wilson, Vice President of Liberty Resources from the United States, with a bid of $1.5 billion and a proposed 12% royalty agreement. Lu Wei, Special Envoy from China's Dragon Minerals, with an offer of $1.4 billion plus $200 million allocated for training local workers. Each man, flanked by lawyers and advisors, wore an air of confidence. For years, they had played this game across the African continent, securing rights to resources with offers that seemed generous in local terms but were a mere fraction of the global market value. But as Traore sat at the head of the table in his military uniform, calm, composed, and unshaken by the pageantry, he knew the cards they were holding. And more importantly, he knew the cards they had hidden. Charles Leblanc leaned forward, voice firm but patronizing. "President Traore, we believe our offer is fair and will bring economic growth to Burkina Faso. Without advanced technology and expertise, it's unrealistic for your country to manage such a complex operation." Traore's response was measured, yet laced with quiet power. "You are mistaken, Mr. Leblanc. For the past 2 years, over 200 mining and geology engineers have been trained at Burkina Faso Technical University. Our lithium processing plant construction is already underway, and we have secured equipment from Russia and Turkey. We are prepared." A wave of unease rippled through the room. Then came the bombshell. Traore signaled to his assistant, who dimmed the lights and projected a large file onto the screen. It was a dossier that would change the course of the meeting, and Burkina Faso's future. The screen displayed internal emails from Atlantis Mining, dating back to 1994. One email from Charles Leblanc to his board read, "The lithium reserves beneath Blue Diamond could elevate our company's valuation tenfold. The locals are unaware of its true worth. We must secure it at the lowest possible cost." A second document was a geological report from Joseph Conate, a former Atlantis employee, confirming the lithium discovery. His signature was on the page, alongside detailed maps showing the estimated 15% of the world's known lithium reserves hidden beneath the diamonds. Traore's voice resonated in the hushed room. "You came here not to invest in our future, but to steal it. You knew the true value of our resources, and you concealed it while offering a fraction of its worth." The silence was deafening. Leblanc's face flushed, Wilson shifted uncomfortably, and Lu Wei's confident demeanor cracked. The weight of Traore's evidence left no room for denial. Then, Traore made his declaration: "The operating rights of the Blue Diamond mine will remain with Burkina Faso. We are open to fair international partnerships for processing and marketing, but under our terms. This resource belongs to the people of Burkina Faso." As reporters scrambled to capture every word, the implications of this decision rippled across the world. Within hours, the French Foreign Ministry issued a statement condemning the move as an unacceptable act of nationalization. The U.S. State Department warned of consequences for international investment security. But Traore remained resolute. This was not just a business decision, it was a declaration of sovereignty. For too long, Burkina Faso had been treated as a pawn in a global game. Now, under Traore's leadership, the country was rewriting the rules, on its own terms. Task 4, Economic Warfare and Coup Attempt. The ink on Traoré's bold declaration had barely dried when the global machinery of economic retaliation began to grind into motion. Within 48 hours, French banks froze Burkina Faso's accounts, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, suspended loan agreements, and the World Bank halted ongoing development projects. Western media erupted with headlines branding Traoré as a radical populist, a threat to global markets. CNN warned of a looming economic disaster in Burkina Faso, while the Financial Times questioned the viability of Traoré's resource nationalism. At the heart of Ouagadougou, citizens felt the squeeze. Supermarket shelves thinned. Prices for basic goods like rice, cooking oil, and fuel surged by over 40%. The national currency, the CFA franc, tumbled in value. Protests flared in the streets, fueled by both genuine concern and foreign-funded discontent, but Traoré had anticipated this storm. For years, he had quietly orchestrated a Plan B trade agreements with Russia and Iran for energy, mining equipment, and essential goods, a lithium-for-gold exchange deal, where Burkina Faso would receive payments in gold reserves instead of US dollars, sidestepping Western-controlled financial systems, food independence programs that had, over the past 3 years, increased Burkina Faso's domestic food production to cover 80% of its basic needs, when his finance minister, Kanebo, voiced concerns over dwindling reserves. Traoré calmly replied, "We expected this. Now is the time to execute our plan." But the most dangerous threat was yet to come. In the dead of night, just weeks after the confrontation with the mining CEOs, General Boubacar, a high-ranking officer backed by French intelligence, attempted a coup. Tanks and armed vehicles surrounded the presidential palace. Soldiers, bribed with promises of wealth and power, moved in under the cover of darkness, but Traoré's intelligence network, led by Sankura, had been monitoring the plotters for months. Within hours, the coup collapsed. Boubacar and his conspirators were arrested, and shocking evidence was seized: encrypted messages, wire transfers from offshore accounts, and directives from French intelligence operatives instructing Boubacar to restore order and facilitate Western investments. Rather than execute the traitors, Traoré took a different approach. In a televised address, he confronted Boubacar live. "General Boubacar, for €5 million and a villa in Europe, you were willing to sell out your country. But tell me, what is the price of our children's future? Of our sovereignty?" Boubacar, trembling, lowered his head in silence. The broadcast sent shockwaves across Africa and the world. It was no longer just a battle over a mine. It was a fight for the soul of a nation. In the aftermath, Burkina Faso's streets erupted not in protest, but in solidarity. Crowds gathered, waving flags, chanting, "Death to traitors! Long live Traoré!" The coup attempt, instead of toppling Traoré, solidified his support. Even as the Western media condemned him as a dictator, across Africa, he was hailed as a hero, a leader who had stood firm against imperialism. The economic blockade persisted, but so did Burkina Faso's resolve. Traoré's nightly addresses on national television became a rallying cry: "Freedom has a price, my brothers and sisters, but that price is less than the cost of centuries of exploitation. We will endure, and we will triumph." And then, an unexpected twist in the global market shifted the balance. A lithium supply crisis erupted. Electric vehicle manufacturers, Volkswagen, Tesla, Ford, faced production halts as prices for lithium surged over 300% in just a few months. Desperation replaced arrogance. Western corporations, once dismissive of Burkina Faso, now sent envoys to Ouagadougou, eager to negotiate. The lesson was clear: Traoré's stand had not only preserved his country's resources, but it had reshaped the global conversation about resource sovereignty. The price of freedom was high, but for the people of Burkina Faso, it was a price worth paying. Task 5, The Lithium Boom, Burkina Faso's New Economic Model. As the dust of political upheaval settled, a new era began to dawn in Burkina Faso. The once marginalized West African nation had stunned the world, not only by standing up to Western powers, but by rewriting the rules of global trade. The Blue Diamond Mine, once seen as a colonial relic of foreign exploitation, had become the beating heart of a bold economic vision, the Traore model. The first sign of this seismic shift came when Volkswagen, the German automotive giant, sent a high-level delegation to Ouagadougou. Their proposal was clear. In exchange for access to Burkina Faso's lithium, they would fund the establishment of a technical training center to develop a skilled local workforce. They would also commit to building battery assembly plants within Burkina Faso, ensuring that value addition remained in-country. Soon after, other automotive giants followed. Tesla, Ford, Toyota, all companies once dismissive of Burkina Faso, now sat at the negotiating table, recognizing the reality Traore had forced them to confront. The days of resource extraction without fair exchange were over, but Traore's vision extended far beyond lucrative contracts. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso invested heavily in infrastructure and human capital. New schools and universities focused on engineering, mining sciences, and industrial technology were established near the Blue Diamond Mine. A modern hospital and affordable housing units for over 2,000 mining families were built, transforming what was once a desolate mining camp into a thriving community. A National Miners' Welfare Fund was created, financed by a 15% royalty on all lithium sales. This fund provided health insurance, education scholarships, and compensation for families of workers who had been injured or lost their lives in the mines over the past 3 decades. Traore didn't just want to extract minerals, he wanted to extract dignity for his people. As he told a group of students touring the mine, this lithium is not just a resource. It's a declaration. It says we will no longer be exploited. We will build our future with our own hands. The model began to gain traction across the continent. Inspired by Burkina Faso's defiance and success, other African nations began to follow suit. Mali, Guinea, Nigeria, and the Democratic Republic of Congo initiated reviews of their mining contracts, demanding fairer terms and greater local participation. Hashtags like #OurBlueDiamonds and #AfricaForAfricans trended globally, signaling a cultural and political awakening. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Operating the Blue Diamond Mine presented enormous challenges. Technical glitches slowed lithium processing. A shortage of experienced engineers created bottlenecks. Logistical issues in transporting minerals to ports became a daily struggle, yet, in a striking display of leadership, Traore didn't retreat to his office. He spent nights at the mine, working alongside engineers, inspecting machinery, reviewing blueprints, and even helping to troubleshoot equipment malfunctions. His presence wasn't for show, it was a statement. One night, as he walked through the mine, an elderly worker, Joseph Konate, approached him. "Mr. President, I want to show you something," Konate said, leading him to a quiet corner of the mine. There, beneath a plaque marking the site of the 1994 mine collapse, stood a modest memorial, names of workers etched in metal, including that of Amara Traore. Konate pulled a worn notebook from his pocket. "These are the names of every worker who lost their life, got sick, or was injured in this mine over the last 30 years. Traore took the notebook, his eyes scanning the pages, hundreds of names, each a story of sacrifice and struggle. He turned to Konate and said, "We will honor them. Not just with words, but with action. Every family will receive compensation. Every child will have a chance at education. This mine will not just extract minerals, it will build lives." And so, the Blue Diamond model was born, a blueprint for African nations to retain ownership of their resources, demand fair partnerships, and invest revenues into the well-being of their people. A year after the nationalization of the Blue Diamond Mine, Burkina Faso was no longer just a small West African country. It had become a symbol, a beacon for resource-rich nations across the global South. Task 6, Conclusion. 1 year after the bold nationalization of the Blue Diamond Mine, the story of Burkina Faso had become a rallying cry across the world. What began as a quiet rebellion led by a son of a miner had transformed into a powerful statement of sovereignty and resistance. a blueprint for resource justice in a world long shaped by exploitation. In a global economy increasingly reliant on lithium, Burkina Faso's defiant stand sent shockwaves through the halls of power. Western CEOs, once dismissive, now spoke of partnerships and mutual respect. The old model of extraction without accountability was crumbling. Instead, the Traore model had taken shape, one that demanded fair trade, respect for national sovereignty, and investment in local communities. The impact of this movement was profound. In Nigeria, the government renegotiated oil contracts to increase national shares. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, young activists demanded audits of mining deals. Across Africa, slogans like "Our Resources, Our Future," and "No More Exploitation" painted city walls and social media feeds, but Traore never lost sight of what this fight was truly about. On a quiet morning, away from the cameras and fanfare, he visited his father's grave. His father, Amara Traoré, the miner who had died in the darkness of the blue diamond shafts. Ibrahim placed the small blue diamond ring, his father's last gift, on the tombstone. His voice, quiet but firm, spoke into the wind, "Your mission is complete, father. The mine is ours. The wealth is ours. The future is ours." Above Ouagadougou, the lights shone brighter than ever, not just from the city, but from the hearts of the people who finally believed in the promise of self-determination. Burkina Faso's story had inspired the world, but the struggle was far from over. The forces of global capital still loomed large, and the battle for fair trade, justice, and dignity would continue. Yet, Traoré's message